What if one question could change everything, even for someone like Elon Musk? That was exactly what happened during a chilly November evening in New York City, where the stage lights glowed softly on a modest, tastefully arranged set for the final live episode of the widely respected, Inside the Mind, interview series. Elon Musk, usually elusive and tightly measured in his public appearances, had agreed to a rare one-on-one, live-streamed interview. Fans flooded online platforms as millions tuned in from around the world. The interviewer, Rachel Morgan, known for her insightful and often disarming questions, had spent years studying the psychology of success and the emotional patterns of the world's most accomplished people. She didn't open with questions about rockets or cars. Instead, she leaned in, adjusted the lapel mic slightly closer to her mouth, and asked, "Mr. Musk, in the long arc of your extraordinary life and all that you've built and broken and rebuilt, what's your biggest regret?" The crowd went quiet. The internet nearly paused. Musk didn't speak right away. There was no scripted chuckle or clever deflection. No branding language. No sales pitch. His face tightened, jaw locked for just a second, and then, something flickered in his eyes. "That's a good question," he said softly, more to himself than to the audience. He looked down at his hands, one thumb nervously pressing the knuckle of the other. "There's a lot I could say," he continued. "Mistakes in engineering. Timing. Strategy. Even relationships. But if I'm being honest," he paused. "It's Tesla. I wasn't there from the very start. I was close. I invested early. But I didn't step in soon enough." The audience murmured. The camera zoomed slightly. "I thought I could juggle SpaceX and let Tesla grow on its own. I believed the right people were in place. But I underestimated the fragility of a vision like that. I let others lead it during its most formative stage, and because of that, we lost years. Years I'll never get back." And with that, something shifted. Musk's tone changed. The usual armor of confidence was still there, but it had dents tonight. The viewers watching felt it, a rare, human glimpse behind the persona. He wasn't talking about cars or colonizing Mars. He was talking about something more intimate: misjudgment, mistime, misplaced trust. He went on to explain that, early in Tesla's history, he had decided to stay hyper-focused on SpaceX because launching reusable rockets seemed more urgent, more world-changing. He believed the auto industry would be slow to shift, that EVs would take time and others could handle the groundwork. "But I was wrong," he said. "The early decisions define everything. Culture, design philosophy, customer trust. If I had been there full-time, the Model S might have launched a year earlier. Or better. Or safer." He paused again. "We nearly lost the company, you know. Twice. And I take responsibility for that." Rachel nodded, clearly sensing the depth of the moment. "Why do you think that regret stands out?" she asked gently. Musk stared at the floor, as if choosing each word from a delicate shelf inside his memory. "Because I knew better," he said. "I had the data. The instinct. The gut feeling. But I thought I could split myself in half. That I was somehow immune to limitations. That's not just arrogance, that's a kind of blindness. And it cost me. It cost us." At this point, Rachel leaned closer again, lowering her voice just enough to draw viewers into the intimacy of the conversation. "Is it the time you lost, or the potential of what could have been?" Musk exhaled a long, slow breath. "Both. But mostly, it's knowing that something so important, something that could shift the trajectory of the planet, needed everything I had. And I gave it only half of me." The feed lit up with comments. Some praised his honesty. Others speculated what Tesla might have looked like if he had gone all in from day one. But something else was happening, too. For a generation raised on hustle culture, constant multitasking, and the glorification of being everywhere at once, this moment hit a nerve. Musk wasn't just talking about cars or capital, he was talking about attention. About presence. About what happens when you try to divide yourself across dreams instead of focusing your entire soul on one. Then Rachel pivoted, as she always did, to her signature question for the viewers: hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Thousands responded in real time. The chat filled with lines like, "My daughter's laugh, my faith, the dream I haven't given up on, proving everyone wrong, hope." Musk looked up at the screen beside him, silently reading the comments as they flashed by. A small smile returned to his face, not smug, not rehearsed. Genuine. "I think the reason this matters," he said, "is because people think regret is weakness. But it's actually clarity. It's where real change starts." The audience burst into applause, not because it was a perfectly timed soundbite, but because it felt real. True. Earned. In the weeks following the interview, that clip would be replayed millions of times, sparking think pieces and debates across media platforms. It trended under #MuskMoment and ignited discussions not just in tech circles but in high school classrooms, business schools, coffee shops, and even therapy sessions. CEOs referenced it in board meetings. Young entrepreneurs used it as motivation to reevaluate their priorities. A university even hosted a panel titled "Regret as Leadership: Lessons from Elon Musk." What began as a single question evolved into a cultural ripple, reminding people that even icons have cracks, and within those cracks is the light of truth. But what most didn't know was that this moment marked a turning point for Musk himself. That one question, so simple, so raw, opened a door he'd kept closed for years. A door to old pain. Old guilt. Old love. And as we'll explore in the chapters to come, it was not just about Tesla. Not even close. It was about the things he didn't say that night. The ones still buried. And the journey that began the moment he left the stage. Long before he sat under the lights of a global stage confessing his deepest regret, Elon Musk was just a boy in Pretoria, South Africa, who didn't fit in. He was small, bookish, and too smart for his own good. His memory was photographic, his ideas odd, and his social skills awkward. He'd often be found in the corner of the schoolyard reading science fiction novels instead of kicking a ball around like the other kids. At home, things weren't much better. His relationship with his father, Elon Musk, was strained and would eventually turn toxic. Elon rarely speaks about it now, but when he does, the words are measured, careful, and emotionally distant. He's called his father a terrible human being, a man whose presence filled a room with dread rather than warmth. Elon's mother, May Musk, was the opposite, resilient, loving, a fierce protector who worked multiple jobs as a dietitian and model to support her children after the divorce. Elon clung to her kindness, her intelligence, and her grit. It was May who encouraged him to think big, dream bigger, and never apologize for wanting more. But even with her support, his childhood was marked by solitude and suffering. He was bullied relentlessly. Pushed downstairs, beaten until he was unconscious, tormented for being different. And while some kids escaped into sports or mischief, Elon escaped into computers. At 10 years old, he taught himself how to code. By 12, he developed and sold a basic video game called Blaster for $500. It wasn't about the money, it was about the control. In the world of code, nobody could hit you. Nobody laughed. It made sense. It was quiet. It obeyed rules. That early understanding of systems, how things connect, how logic can create worlds, became the foundation of everything he'd build in the decades to come. But those early years left scars that never truly faded. Elon's emotional memory runs deep, and while he rarely cries or dwells on the past in interviews, those who know him best say his drive comes not from ambition alone but from pain, a pain so foundational it became part of his identity. He wasn't just trying to build the future, he was trying to escape the past. That desire followed him across continents. At 17, he left South Africa for Canada, desperate to avoid mandatory military service in a country still locked in apartheid. He enrolled at Queen's University in Ontario, drawn by its openness and the dream of North America. There he met Justine Wilson, an aspiring writer who would later become his first wife. Elon stood out. He wasn't just intelligent, he was intense. He talked about colonizing Mars, creating new currencies, reimagining the internet. Most people found it weird. Justine found it electrifying. After 2 years at Queen's, Elon transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned dual degrees in economics and physics. He slept on couches, showered in public bathrooms, and poured himself into studies while dreaming of something more, something that didn't yet exist. In 1995, he was accepted to Stanford for a PhD program in energy physics but dropped out after 2 days. The internet was exploding, and he didn't want to miss it. He and his brother Kimball founded Zip2, a company that provided online city guides to newspapers. It was primitive by today's standards, but revolutionary at the time. When Compaq bought it for $307 million, Elon pocketed $22 million. But it wasn't enough, not for someone who'd already tasted the infinite. With that money, he launched X.com, an online banking startup that was eventually rebranded as PayPal. Internal tensions boiled over, and Elon was forced out as CEO while on his honeymoon. He was crushed. It felt like betrayal, he once told a friend. But he still walked away with $180 million after PayPal sold to eBay. That windfall should have set him for life. For most, it would have meant early retirement, maybe a beachfront house, a few investments. But Elon wasn't built for stillness. The past still nipped at his heels, and the future still called with relentless urgency. That was when he did something unthinkable. He split the money almost entirely across 3 unproven ventures, SpaceX, Tesla, and SolarCity. Friends begged him to be cautious. Advisors warned him it was reckless. But Elon didn't care. He wasn't investing in companies. He was investing in humanity. And more personally, he was betting on himself. It was during this time that his relationship with Justine began to strain. The couple had suffered a tragedy that would haunt them forever. Their first son, Nevada, died at 10 weeks old from SIDS. Elon never publicly discussed it in depth, but Justine would later write that he shut down emotionally, unable to talk about the grief, unwilling to process it. Instead, he buried himself in work, creating even more distance between them. They went on to have 5 more children through IVF, twins, then triplets, but the cracks in the marriage deepened. Eventually, they divorced. Elon would go on to have other high-profile relationships, including one with actress Tallulah Riley and later singer Grimes, with whom he would have more children. But even those closest to him admit, love has always been complicated for Elon. Not because he doesn't feel it, but because he feels everything too deeply and expresses it too oddly. The emotional software doesn't always match the human hardware. His romantic failures are tangled with his personal history, and his intense focus on work often leaves little room for anything else. Despite all of this, or maybe because of it, his companies began to gain momentum. SpaceX launched its first successful Falcon 9 rocket in 2008 after 3 failed attempts that nearly bankrupted the company. Tesla unveiled the Roadster around the same time, despite massive doubts from the auto industry. But these victories didn't come easily. There were lawsuits, production hell, media hit pieces, and endless nights where Elon had to choose between making payroll or paying rent. Yet through it all, something kept pushing him forward. Not just ambition or ego, but that inner voice shaped by childhood rejection, by early failure, by the belief that he had to prove his worth to the world again and again. It was as if he still heard the laughter of the bullies or the cold silence of a disapproving father. And he couldn't rest, not until he had silenced them all. That's the part of Elon Musk most people don't see. The part forged in loneliness, tempered by trauma, and fueled not by the love of winning but by the fear of wasting potential. It's the reason he works 100-hour weeks, the reason he pushes employees to the brink, the reason he risks everything again and again. Because underneath the bravado, the tweets, the wild headlines, there is a little boy who never felt safe, so he built an empire to protect himself. And yet, as he reflected in that interview, all of that effort still couldn't undo the regret. That moment with Tesla, that brief window when he could have been fully present, fully committed, fully aware. And continued to haunt him. It wasn't about losing money. It was about losing time. Time that could have changed the course of the company, the industry, the planet. It was a failure that made all the other failures hurt a little more. Because it was preventable. And he knew it. That's why the question hit so hard. Because it pierced the part of Elon that wasn't armored, wasn't calculated, wasn't rehearsed. It struck the wound that never healed. And it cracked him open, just enough for the world to see the man behind the mission. By the time Elon Musk had solidified his role at Tesla and SpaceX, the myth of the man was already taking shape. He was the genius, the disruptor, the one who didn't flinch in the face of impossible odds. But behind the scenes, the cracks were widening. As Tesla's Model S moved from concept to prototype, the pressure intensified. Delays mounted. Costs ballooned. Suppliers pulled out. And while the public still saw the polished keynotes and the flash of innovation, those closest to the company saw something much darker. An internal ecosystem held together by grit, desperation, and Musk's absolute refusal to fail. One engineer recalled sleeping under his desk for 2 weeks straight. Another admitted breaking down in tears after a 10-minute meeting with Musk. "He doesn't yell," she said. "He just looks at you like you should have been smarter. And it kills you." The company's Fremont factory was more war zone than workplace. Assembly lines were redesigned mid-week. Production targets doubled overnight. Elon would walk the floor with a notebook, quietly observing, occasionally stepping in to correct minor inefficiencies with surgical precision. His mind worked faster than most, and he expected everyone else's to keep pace. But they couldn't. They tried. God, they tried. But it was never enough. Elon's demands began to fracture even the most loyal of his team. Resignations trickled in. Rumors of a toxic culture swirled in the press. Board members expressed concern. Investors began to whisper. Elon dismissed it all. "This isn't a job," he told the team during a midnight all-hands meeting. "This is a crusade. You're not building cars. You're building the future." He meant it. But not everyone could live at that level of intensity. People had families. Lives. Limits. Elon didn't. He once famously said, "I'd rather commit seppuku than fail." It wasn't hyperbole. It was a mantra. And it bled into everything, his relationships, his health, his grip on reality. Around this time, his personal life once again took a hit. His second marriage to actress Tallulah Riley had ended, then resumed, then ended again. The public speculated endlessly, but the truth was far simpler: Elon didn't have time for love. Or more accurately, he didn't know how to keep it. Love demanded presence, and Elon's presence was always elsewhere, in the next line of code, the next battery prototype, the next rocket trajectory. He told Tallulah once, during a particularly painful fight, "I love you, but I love the mission more." She didn't cry. She just nodded. She already knew. That same year, 2016, Tesla acquired SolarCity, a solar energy company founded by Musk's cousins and heavily backed by Elon himself. From the outside, it looked like a strategic move to consolidate Musk's clean energy vision. From the inside, it looked like desperation. SolarCity was drowning in debt. Critics accused Musk of using Tesla's public stock to bail out a failing personal investment. Lawsuits followed. Shareholders revolted. The media called it ego-driven empire building. Elon called it synergy. But even he began to question the timing. As the lawsuits dragged on, Tesla's stock fluctuated violently. One bad quarter sent it plummeting. Elon responded not with retreat but with acceleration. He famously tweeted, "Funding secured," hinting he might take Tesla private at $420 a share, a number that would later lead to a full-blown SEC investigation. He had not, in fact, secured funding. The tweet cost him the Tesla chairmanship, $20 million in fines, and weeks of legal warfare. But it wasn't just about the money. It was about control. Elon hated losing control. And for the first time in years, he felt it slipping. Inside SpaceX, things weren't any easier. Starship was proving far more complex than anticipated. Falcon Heavy launches were postponed again and again. NASA contracts were slow. Mars remained a dream. Meanwhile, critics were circling. Former executives began speaking anonymously to reporters. Employees posted anonymous Glassdoor reviews. Words like abusive, chaotic, and unsustainable started to shadow his companies. But it wasn't just outside voices. Inside Tesla, whispers of mutiny were growing. Several senior engineers presented a memo outlining a series of unsustainable practices, 16-hour shifts, unrealistic deadlines, retaliatory behavior when Elon was challenged. One wrote bluntly, "We're not sleeping. We're not seeing our families. We're building a world we'll be too burned out to live in." Elon's response was chilling in its brevity. "You can leave," he said. "The door's open." Some did. Most stayed. Why? Because despite everything, they believed. In the darkest moments, when the factory was silent except for the whir of machinery and the hum of unfinished ideas, Musk's presence kept people going. He slept on the production floor. Ate cold food from vending machines. Didn't shower for days. If he could push that hard, so could they. That's what made it all so complicated. He inspired and exhausted. He elevated and destroyed. One employee said, "He makes you feel like you're part of something holy. And then he breaks you. And then you come back for more." Meanwhile, Elon's relationship with his children became increasingly strained. Co-parenting was hard enough, but the emotional distance proved harder. His eldest son, Xavier, now a teenager, had begun pushing back, challenging Elon on everything from politics to parenting to priorities. During one heated exchange, Xavier reportedly said, "You don't want kids. You want legacy. And we're not the same thing." Elon didn't respond. He just walked away. He later confided in a friend that it was the worst thing he'd ever heard. And maybe the most accurate. As public scrutiny grew, Elon's behavior became more erratic. He picked fights with journalists. Mocked short sellers. Tweeted memes in the middle of crisis meetings. At one point, he called a British cave rescuer a pedo guy in a bizarre online rant that resulted in yet another lawsuit. His board tried to intervene. Advisors urged him to hire a COO, to delegate more, to rest. Elon refused. He couldn't rest. Rest was the enemy. If he stopped, even for a moment, everything might collapse. And beneath that, deeper than the finances or the optics or the pressure, was a darker truth: he was afraid. Not of failure. Not even of death. He was afraid of wasting time. Every hour lost was another hour the future might die in someone else's hands. Every mistake was another delay in solving climate change, getting to Mars, saving the species. That's how he saw it. The stakes weren't quarterly earnings. The stakes were survival. But not everyone shared his urgency. A senior Tesla executive finally snapped during a leadership summit. "We're not gods," she said. "We're not machines. We're people. And you're burning us alive." Elon stared at her for a long time. Then said, "Then you don't belong here." She quit the next day. Others followed. Turnover soared. Tesla's human resources department scrambled to control the bleeding. Internally, a report revealed that over 30% of high-level managers had quit or been reassigned within 18 months. The media jumped on it. The cult of Elon cracks. Tesla in turmoil. Can Musk hold it together? He ignored the headlines. Publicly, he laughed them off. Privately, he was unraveling. He wasn't sleeping. He started relying on Ambien and red wine to come down, then caffeine and rage to power back up. Friends intervened. Some disappeared. He became more isolated, more unpredictable, more consumed. And then, in the middle of all that, something happened that no one expected. Tesla hit its delivery targets. Not just met them, crushed them. Stock soared. Analysts apologized. Short sellers were annihilated. SpaceX landed another major NASA contract. A reusable Falcon 9 completed a perfect vertical landing. The crowd at Mission Control went wild. And just like that, the chaos was redeemed. That's the thing with Elon, he can stumble, spiral, self-destruct, and still pull off the impossible. It's what makes him so revered. And so dangerous. But even as the world celebrated, even as investors cheered and headlines softened, the regret lingered. That one moment, those early days when he wasn't all in at Tesla, when he trusted others to carry a vision he should have carried himself, kept haunting him. Because success doesn't always erase mistakes. Sometimes, it just highlights them. And for Elon, no amount of victory could silence the voice that said, "You should have been there sooner." The day everything shifted began like any other. Elon Musk was in Boca Chica, Texas, standing in the wind just outside the SpaceX launch facility. A new prototype of the Starship rocket, SN-24, was undergoing static fire tests. Engineers scurried in every direction. Clipboards, checklists, nervous chatter. Elon, arms folded, eyes scanning every angle of the launch pad, seemed calm. But inside, he wasn't. He hadn't been calm in weeks. Not since the interview. Not since the question that cracked him open. He hadn't spoken much about it afterward, but something had stirred, deep, old, and difficult to define. It was more than Tesla. More than the regret. It was a recognition that somewhere, along the way, he had begun losing the plot. The mission was still intact. The goals were still righteous. But the human cost, on others, on himself, was rising. Too many broken relationships. Too many burned bridges. Too much noise in his own mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was building a future he might not be part of. Not because of death. But because of disconnection. That morning, as the rocket screamed to life in a blur of orange flame, he flinched, not from fear, but from something more personal. A message had come in right before the ignition sequence. An email. Short. Stark. From Xavier. Elon hadn't heard from him in months, not since the argument that ended with Xavier walking out and slamming the door behind him. But here it was. The subject line, "You were right." The body of the email was just one sentence, but being right isn't the same as being good. Elon read it 3 times. It hit him harder than any explosion. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. A truth he'd avoided for years. Being right wasn't the goal. Saving the planet wasn't the whole story. Not if it meant losing everyone who mattered. For the rest of the day, Elon moved like a ghost through the facility, checking numbers, giving notes, nodding mechanically. But his mind was elsewhere. On his son. On May. On Nevada. On the people who had tried to love him but found him unreachable. That night, he didn't go back to his room. Instead, he climbed to the top of the GSE tower near the launch pad, alone, with just a thermos of coffee and the hum of the desert wind. He sat there for hours, watching stars blink into existence, one by one, as if they were signaling to him. "You've made it," they seemed to say. But now what? Around midnight, he opened a private Slack channel and messaged one person, Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX president and one of the few people Elon trusted implicitly. He simply wrote, "We need to talk. In person." She replied instantly, "You okay?" "No," he typed back. "But I know what I have to do." What followed over the next several weeks was something no one saw coming. Elon Musk disappeared. Not from the companies, not entirely. But from the public. He stopped tweeting. Stopped appearing on podcasts. Declined press interviews. At first, people assumed he was off building something new, working in secret, laying the groundwork for some grand reveal. But those close to him knew better. He was retreating inward. For the first time in decades, Elon had stopped trying to outpace the pain and instead started trying to understand it. He took long walks by the ocean. He read old journals. He rewatched childhood home videos, grainy clips of May cooking, of Kimball laughing, of his own thin, awkward frame dancing around in the background, pretending to be a robot. He even reached out to Justine. Tentatively. Not for reconciliation. Just for clarity. "I want to know what I missed," he texted her. She called instead. They spoke for nearly 3 hours. It was emotional, awkward, at times combative. But by the end of it, something had softened. "You were always so afraid of the world breaking you," she said. "You didn't realize it already had." Elon didn't respond. He couldn't. Because she was right. He also began therapy, quietly, discreetly, with a specialist in trauma and high-performance psychology. It wasn't about solving problems. It was about understanding patterns. The therapist asked questions no journalist ever dared to. When you work 100 hours a week, what are you trying not to feel? What's more important, being loved or being remembered? If Mars happened tomorrow and you were alone on it, would that count as success? Elon resisted at first. Then leaned in. Slowly, reluctantly, then with hunger. Not for validation. For truth. And the truth was this: somewhere along the way, his life had become one long reaction. To his father. To failure. To fear. To the haunting notion that unless he did something cosmic, his life would be meaningless. But meaning wasn't just in rockets or algorithms. It was in forgiveness. In being seen. In holding your son's hand and not checking your phone. In showing up even when you didn't have the answers. It was in silence. In stillness. In the things he'd run from since Pretoria. Around this time, something unexpected happened. An employee at Tesla, a junior assembly worker named Lauren, posted a short internal memo. She didn't know Elon had seen it. She hadn't written it for him. It was meant for her small team. But it made its way up. The memo read, "I don't stay here because of the brand. I stay here because I still believe we're trying to do good. I know Elon is intense. I know it's hard. But if he ever showed up and said, 'I'm trying to be better,' I'd work for him for the rest of my life." Elon read it 10 times. Then forwarded it to Gwynne with 2 words, "Let's start." What followed wasn't flashy. It didn't trend. It wasn't even covered by the press. But inside Tesla and SpaceX, something began to shift. Meetings shortened. Breaks lengthened. Mental health resources expanded. Elon began checking in with teams not to give feedback, but to ask questions. What's not working? What's broken? What's burning you out? He started walking the factory floor differently. Not with a notepad. With eye contact. With curiosity. Not everyone trusted it. Some thought it was PR. But others saw it for what it was, a man trying, awkwardly, haltingly, to reconnect. He wasn't soft. He didn't change overnight. He still pushed. Still obsessed. Still demanded excellence. But he began asking himself something new before every decision: is this helping me build the future, or hide from the past? That question reshaped everything. It led to a new Tesla training program focused on leadership through empathy. It sparked a SpaceX mentorship initiative pairing junior engineers with seasoned mentors. It even led to Elon writing a private letter to his son, long, raw, unapologetically vulnerable. He didn't expect a reply. But he needed to say it. In the letter, he wrote, "You were right. I confused legacy with love. I thought I had to earn affection through achievement. But the only thing I ever had to do was listen. I'm listening now." A week later, Xavier replied. 4 words. "Let's go for coffee." Elon cried. Alone. Quietly. For a long time. Not from sadness. From relief. From release. From the weight of decades finally lifting. And though the rocket still launched and the cars still rolled off the line and the code still deployed, something in Elon Musk's world had shifted. Not outward. Inward. The climb didn't stop. The mission didn't end. But now, for the first time in his life, he was beginning to understand that changing the world started with changing himself. It was a new kind of journey. One without an engineering solution. One that required not more intelligence, but more heart. And it scared him more than any launch ever had. But he didn't back down. He showed up. It wasn't until he sat in front of the mirror in a dim hotel room in Los Angeles, hours before stepping on stage for a rare in-person interview, that Elon Musk finally admitted something aloud. Not to the interviewer. Not to the cameras. Just to himself. "I'm tired of pretending I'm okay." The sentence floated in the air, echoing against silence. No audience. No Twitter likes. No boardroom nods of approval. Just Elon, looking at his own reflection and wondering how long he could keep carrying everything, every launch, every car, every expectation. It had been 3 months since Xavier had agreed to meet him for coffee. They'd gone to a quiet place in Santa Monica, no security, no press, just 2 people with the same DNA trying to find common ground. Elon had shown up early. He always did. He wore a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a hoodie that said, "Occupy Mars," but he could have walked in wearing a cape and still been invisible in LA. Xavier arrived late. No apology, no handshake. Just sat down and stared across the table. "I don't know how to talk to you," Xavier said flatly. "You don't have to," Elon replied. "Just tell me what I missed." There was a long pause. Then came a flood, memories, accusations, observations. Missed birthdays. Broken promises. Emotional absence. Elon didn't interrupt. Didn't justify. Just listened. When Xavier finally stopped, his voice shaking but his eyes dry, Elon said, "I thought giving you the world would make up for not knowing how to be in it." Xavier didn't respond right away. Then he said, "You gave us the future. I just wanted a dad." It was a knife to the chest. And it changed something. In that moment, the image of Elon Musk as the indestructible visionary began to blur. Because underneath the ambition, underneath the legacy and technology and history-making, was a man who had no idea how to express the one thing that made him human, his need for connection. It wasn't that he didn't feel. He felt too much. But emotion scared him in ways risk never had. A rocket exploding was a problem to solve. A child's heartbreak was a mirror he didn't want to look into. But now, there was no avoiding it. That same night, he wrote letters, not emails, not texts. Letters. To his mother, to Kimball, to Justine, even to Tallulah. Each one was a confession. Not of guilt, but of distance. He told them he'd been missing for years, even when he was in the room. That the silence between them wasn't indifference, but fear. That he was sorry. Some wrote back. Some didn't. But what mattered was the release. For the first time in decades, he wasn't building something for the world. He was trying to rebuild something for himself. And that effort bled into his work. The Elon Musk who walked into Tesla's quarterly review 2 weeks later was different. Not softer. Just more present. When a young engineer nervously pitched a radical redesign of a battery assembly line, expecting to be shut down, Elon leaned forward and asked, "What do you need to test it?" No sarcasm. No eye roll. Just belief. "For weeks and some space in the R&D bay," the engineer said. "You've got 2 weeks," Elon replied with a smile. "And I'll visit on day 10. People started noticing. Noticing how he paused more in conversations. How he looked people in the eyes longer. How he said things like, "Thank you," and, "You were right," without being prompted. It was subtle, but real. Then came the interview. A rare, long-form sit-down with an experienced journalist known for pushing deep. It wasn't intended to be emotional. Just a retrospective: Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, Starlink. The usual arc. But then the interviewer asked a question that landed like a body blow: "What's your biggest regret?" Elon hesitated. Looked down. Rubbed his hands together. The audience went still. Cameras zoomed in. "I think," he began, voice barely above a whisper, "I think I missed the point of all of this for a long time." The interviewer raised an eyebrow. Elon continued. "I thought success would make things easier. That once we were building the cars, launching the rockets, solving problems, the rest would fall into place. But it didn't. It got harder. Because I thought being right was enough. I thought being first, being best, meant something. But it didn't mean anything when I couldn't be there for my son. When I couldn't even understand what my family needed from me." The room was quiet. Elon took a breath. "There was a moment early in Tesla when I had a choice: go all in, or let someone else steer it. And I stepped back, just a little. Because I was afraid. Not of failure. Of being too much. Of scaring people. Of becoming my father." The words cracked. His voice wavered. "But that choice created cracks I couldn't see until later. Cracks in the company. Cracks in my relationships. And I've been trying to repair them ever since." The interviewer leaned in gently. "Do you still believe you're doing the right thing?" Elon nodded slowly. "Yes. But I also believe that doing the right thing doesn't excuse doing it the wrong way." And then, as if he'd reached some inner tipping point, he said something no one expected. "I think I've been addicted to proving I matter. But the truth is, the people who loved me never needed proof. They just needed me." The silence that followed was more powerful than any quote, any reveal. It was the sound of the myth collapsing, and the man rising from beneath it. That interview went viral within hours. Not because of drama, but because of honesty. People didn't see a mogul. They saw a father. A son. A human being learning how to come back to earth. Messages flooded in. From engineers. From burned-out founders. From estranged parents and adult children who hadn't spoken in years. Something about Elon's vulnerability cracked open a window for others. He had gone so far into space, and yet somehow, found his way home. In the weeks that followed, things changed. Not rapidly. Not dramatically. But meaningfully. Elon showed up to a Tesla team member's wedding, uninvited but not unwelcome. He called a former employee he once fired harshly and apologized. He took Xavier to a baseball game, and didn't check his phone the entire night. And maybe most surprisingly of all, he started mentoring, not just his usual senior VPs or co-founders, but young people. Teen inventors. First-gen college grads. Kids who reminded him of himself at 12. "You're not broken," he told one kid during a STEM summit in Austin. "You just think differently. And that's your superpower. But don't forget the other part, you still need people." That line would later be quoted everywhere. On Reddit. On TikTok. Even in classrooms. But for Elon, it wasn't about the quote. It was about the kid's face when he heard it, how it softened, how it lit up with something close to hope. That's what Elon had found in the ruins of regret. Hope. Not in the future of AI, or Mars, or battery life. But in something far more fragile. In forgiveness. In the possibility that it's never too late to change how you love. That no matter how far you've gone, there's still a way back. If you're willing to slow down. Listen. Try again. And that maybe, just maybe, the most important launch is the one where you finally let go of who you thought you had to be and step into who you actually are. The rain was falling lightly as Elon Musk stood beneath the massive shadow of Starship. The launch tower loomed behind him, silent for now, surrounded by fog. It was early, just past 5 a.m., and the air was thick with that pre-dawn stillness that blankets everything like a secret. He was alone, dressed simply, wearing an old SpaceX jacket with frayed cuffs and running shoes caked in desert dust. This wasn't a media moment. No cameras. No tweets. No headlines. Just a man standing at the edge of everything he had ever built, letting the quiet speak. He was thinking about Nevada again. His first son. The one who didn't get to grow up. The one whose name he didn't say often enough. Elon had always buried the pain, packed it away like a dangerous chemical labeled, "Do not open." For years, he convinced himself it made him stronger. That grief turned inward could be fuel. But now, standing here, with the towering rocket above him and the weight of decades behind him, he realized it hadn't made him stronger. It had just made him harder. And that wasn't the same thing. "You would have been 20, he whispered into the wind. "I wonder what you'd be like. I wonder if I'd be enough for you." The wind didn't answer. It didn't have to. In that moment, Elon wasn't the billionaire genius or the space pioneer or the controversial icon. He was just a father. A man grieving the life he missed and the time he couldn't get back. He had spent so much of his life chasing the future. But now, he was starting to see the value of the present, the messy, fleeting, human present. That shift didn't mean abandoning ambition. It meant anchoring it in something deeper than fear or ego. In the weeks after the interview went viral, everything felt different. Not externally, SpaceX was still developing Starship, Tesla was still navigating regulations, Neuralink was still drawing ethical debates, but internally, in Elon, something had finally settled. There was a new rhythm to his days. He began blocking out hours of unstructured time, something he used to scoff at. No meetings. No code reviews. Just reading. Walking. Sitting with his thoughts. Listening to his kids. Watching a sunrise. He even got a dog. A rescue mutt named Cosmo with crooked ears and a habit of sleeping on Elon's feet during Zoom calls. "He reminds me to stay grounded," Elon joked once. Literally. Gwynne Shotwell noticed the difference first. "You're still intense," she said over lunch. "But you're not drowning in it anymore. You leave space for air." At Tesla, the effect was contagious. More leaders adopted Elon's new reflective cadence. Burnout dropped. Collaboration improved. Meetings got shorter, more honest. The culture didn't go soft. It matured. And in that maturing, a new kind of innovation emerged, not just faster, but smarter. Elon began hosting fireside chats with junior engineers, no agenda, just conversation. In one session, someone asked, "What would you do differently if you were starting over today?" He paused. Thought carefully. "I would ask for help sooner. I'd listen more. I'd love better. The room was silent. Someone started to clap. Elon raised his hand and stopped them. No applause. Just action. You'll face the same trade-offs I did. Don't make the same mistakes. That became the heart of his new message, legacy not just through technology, but through behavior. Through building cultures that didn't eat people alive. Through choosing humility over hubris. And it wasn't just talk. He invested in a startup founded by one of his former interns, not because of the product, but because of the way she led. She treats her people better than I did at her age, he said proudly. She's the future I want to see. Meanwhile, his personal life began stitching itself back together, thread by patient thread. Xavier, now going by a different name and forging their own identity, became a quiet part of Elon's life again, not every day, not all the time, but enough to matter. They'd exchange memes. Have lunch. Debate philosophy and ethics. No pressure. Just presence. With his mother May, he started calling more. Listening more. She once said during a call, "I like this version of you." He's still trying to change the world, but he remembers my birthday. Elon laughed and promised not to forget again. Even Tallulah texted once. I read the interview. You sounded real. He replied with a single word, trying. That was the core of it now. Not perfection. Not control. Just the daily attempt to show up, to be better than the day before. One afternoon, while walking Cosmo along a trail near his Austin home, Elon stopped at a bench overlooking the lake. There was a young couple nearby, visibly stressed, arguing quietly. Their toddler was squirming in a stroller. Elon didn't stare. He just watched with a kind of reverent curiosity. The woman noticed him. Whispered something to her partner. Then she turned to Elon and asked, "Are you?" He smiled and nodded. She looked down, embarrassed. "Sorry. It's just, you're different in person. You look calmer." Elon didn't know how to respond, so he just said the truth. "I stopped believing the world was against me." Her partner raised an eyebrow. "And that worked?" Elon looked at the lake. It didn't fix everything. But it made space for better things to grow. Later that night, he wrote another letter. This one wasn't to anyone else. It was to himself. A version of him from 20 years ago. The version working out of a rented office, surviving on Diet Coke and vengeance. He wrote, "You think you're building the future. And you are. But you're also building walls. You're pushing people away so they can't leave you first. You confuse movement with progress. But one day, you'll understand that slowing down isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That connection is the most complex algorithm you'll ever try to solve. And that love isn't earned by greatness. It's given in quiet moments, if you let it." He saved the letter. Printed it. Folded it. Slid it into a drawer. He didn't need to send it. He just needed to remember. Months later, at a keynote event in Berlin, Elon took the stage to announce a major breakthrough in battery technology. The audience was buzzing. Investors, engineers, media, all eyes on him. But before he began the technical portion, he paused and said something unexpected. "Before we get into specs, I want to say something personal." Murmurs in the crowd. Elon took a breath. "For years, I thought technology was the answer to every problem. But now I realize, it's only part of the answer. The real challenge is being human. Staying human. I'm still learning that. But if you're in this room and you're trying to lead, trying to build, trying to love, just know that messing up doesn't disqualify you. It makes you honest. Keep going." It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't on the slide deck. But it landed. Hard. People stood. Applauded. Some wiped their eyes. That clip went viral, not because of what was built, but because of who was becoming. Elon Musk had spent a lifetime reaching for the stars. But his greatest achievement wasn't landing rockets. It was learning how to come home. And that's the lesson he would leave the world with, not just in silicon or steel, but in something softer, something stronger. A message whispered in the quiet spaces between ambition and acceptance: life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way. The sun was setting over the Pacific, casting a golden hue over the sprawling campus of X Corp in San Francisco. Elon Musk stood at the edge of the rooftop terrace, gazing out at the horizon. The city below buzzed with activity, a stark contrast to the stillness within him. It had been a year since he had begun his journey of introspection and change, and while the external world continued to turn, he felt as though he had been standing still, waiting for something to shift. His phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking his reverie. He pulled it out and saw a message from Xavier. "Dad, I think I'm ready to talk." A wave of emotion washed over him, relief, hope, and a deep-seated fear. He had been waiting for this moment, but now that it was here, he wasn't sure what to say. Elon took a deep breath and typed back, "Whenever you're ready, I'll be here." As he hit send, his mind drifted back to the events of the past year. The public apology to President Trump had been a turning point. After a heated public dispute, Musk had acknowledged that some of his recent social media posts had gone too far and expressed regret. The apology was met with mixed reactions, but it marked a significant shift in Musk's approach to public discourse. In the months that followed, Musk had focused on rebuilding relationships and restoring his reputation. He had taken steps to distance himself from controversial political endorsements and had worked to repair his standing with investors and the public. Despite these efforts, the Tesla takedown movement had gained momentum, with protests and boycotts targeting Tesla and its CEO. The movement's goal was to economically impact Musk and challenge his political influence, highlighting the ongoing challenges he faced in his personal and professional life. But amidst the turmoil, there had been moments of clarity. He had spent more time with his children, engaging in activities that allowed him to connect with them on a deeper level. He had sought therapy, not just for himself but for his family as well, in an attempt to heal the wounds of the past. He had learned to listen more, to speak less, and to be present in the moments that mattered most. Yet, despite these efforts, the question remained: was it enough? His phone buzzed again, this time with a call from Justine. He hesitated before answering. "Elon," she said, her voice calm but firm, "we need to talk about Xavier." He nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "I know. I'm ready." "Good," she replied. "Because he's not the only one who's been waiting." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Elon had spent so much time focusing on the future, on rockets, on AI, on Mars, that he had neglected the present. He had neglected his family, his relationships, and most importantly, himself. He had been running, always running, from the pain, from the guilt, from the fear. But now, as he stood on the precipice of something new, he realized that he couldn't outrun it any longer. He had to face it. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be setbacks, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. But for the first time in a long time, Elon Musk felt a sense of peace. He was no longer chasing a future that he thought he was supposed to have. He was embracing the one that was unfolding before him. As he looked out at the city below, he made a promise to himself, to be present, to be honest, and to rebuild what had been broken, not just for his children, but for himself. And with that, Elon Musk took the first step into a new chapter of his life, one where the pursuit of greatness was balanced with the pursuit of meaning. The conference room was quiet except for the subtle hum of fluorescent lights. Elon sat alone at the head of the long table in Tesla's headquarters in Palo Alto. No assistants. No team. Just a thick envelope in front of him, its seal already broken. The contents, a shareholder petition demanding accountability. For months, tensions had been rising again. Not because the company was failing. In fact, profits were up. The new semi-autonomous energy hubs were outperforming forecasts. But that wasn't the issue. It was Elon himself. The media's redemption arc had run its course, and now the public wanted something more real, more permanent. Words weren't enough anymore. Not for them. Not for him. Elon leaned back, staring at the envelope like it held a map to a past he didn't want to revisit. He had tried so hard to course correct. Spent time with Xavier. Showed up at his daughter's science fair. Visited old friends he hadn't seen since PayPal. But consequences have a long memory. And some mistakes don't care how sorry you are. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Drew Baglino, one of the longest-serving engineers at Tesla, and one of the few who still spoke to Elon like a person, not a prophet. "We're ready when you are," Drew said. Elon nodded and stood, stuffing the letter into his jacket pocket. Today wasn't just about production updates or quarterly targets. It was about owning the mess he'd left behind. The mess of ambition unchecked. Of brilliance without boundaries. Of leadership that sometimes forgot people weren't machines. As he stepped into the boardroom, cameras clicked. Investors lined the rows. Staff sat quietly, waiting. Elon took the podium, cleared his throat, and began without a script. "Before we talk about numbers, I need to talk about something else. About responsibility." A pause. You could feel the room lean in. "Years ago, I said that I work 100-hour weeks so others don't have to. That was a lie. Not intentionally. But functionally. Because people here were matching me. Burning out. Losing time with their families. And I praised them for it. I rewarded exhaustion. I normalized it. I called it passion. But what it really was fear. Fear that if we slowed down, we'd fall behind. Fear that if we weren't always first, we were nothing. And I let that fear run the culture. That was my mistake. And I'm sorry." The room stayed still. Elon continued. "We're not just building batteries and cars and rockets. We're building the future. But what good is the future if we destroy people getting there? If we lose ourselves along the way?" From the back of the room, a longtime union advocate stood. "Are you saying you support our proposal for employee wellness audits?" Elon looked him in the eye. "Yes. Starting immediately. And I'm adding a clause, those audits include executive leadership. Including me." Murmurs filled the space. Not disbelief. Not applause. Just adjustment. People recalibrating what they thought was possible. And in that shift, something subtle happened. For the first time in a long time, Elon wasn't performing. He was participating. After the meeting, as the crowd dispersed, Drew approached again. "That took guts," he said. Elon shrugged. "It took too long." That afternoon, he walked the floor of the Gigafactory without an entourage. Just him and a clipboard. Not to critique. To observe. To ask. To listen. A technician on line 3 asked, "Is this part of your PR thing?" Elon smiled faintly. "No. This is part of my, try not to be an ass anymore, thing." The technician laughed. And that laugh, small and unplanned, meant more than any press release ever could. Later, at home, he joined a video call with his youngest children. They were with their mother, halfway across the world, but it didn't matter. They played a game. He let them beat him. They giggled. One asked, "Dad, do rockets have bedrooms?" Elon said, "Not yet. But they will if you want them to." That night, he didn't check his email. Didn't scroll through X. He read a book, an actual novel, start to finish. He underlined passages that had nothing to do with engineering. One read, Sometimes returning home doesn't mean going backward. It means finally stopping the run. That line stayed with him for days. Long enough to shape what came next. The media wanted exclusives. But Elon turned them down. He didn't need a narrative. He needed momentum. He launched a new initiative at Tesla called Build with Balance. It started small: flexible workweeks, mental health stipends, rotating sabbaticals. But it grew fast. It resonated. Because it wasn't about productivity. It was about permission. Permission to live. Permission to breathe. He partnered with school districts to build local tech programs, staffed by actual Tesla employees. Not figureheads. Not PR, real people. Real mentors. "We're not saving the world," Elon told the team at one kickoff. "We're saving the next version of ourselves." Still, not everyone bought in. Some former employees accused him of using vulnerability as leverage. Others said his changes were too little, too late. And Elon didn't argue. Because they weren't wrong. But he kept going. One foot in front of the other. One meeting at a time. One moment of grace stacked against decades of damage. At a reunion for early SpaceX team members, an old engineer named Julie walked up to him, arms crossed. "I almost quit because of you," she said. Elon nodded. "I know. But I stayed because I believed in what we were building." "Do you still?" he asked. She looked at him for a long moment. "I believe in what you're becoming." That stuck. Maybe more than anything else. And then, quietly, without fanfare, Xavier came back. Not to the spotlight. Just to dinner. One night a week. Then two. Then more. They talked. Fought. Laughed. He learned to listen without needing to fix. They watched old movies. Argued over music. Didn't talk about legacy. Just life. And one night, as they sat in the kitchen eating leftover Thai food, Xavier asked, "Do you still want to die on Mars?" Elon chewed, then replied, "Only if I live well on Earth first." Xavier smiled. "That's new." "I'm trying," Elon said. And that, really, was the heart of it. Not the transformation. The trying. The returning. Not to a brand. To a self. One that could build the future, yes, but also hold the present. One that could lift rockets, and hands. Fix code, and relationships. Be brilliant, and be loved. And in that balance, Elon found something better than genius. He found peace. Elon's phone buzzed relentlessly as he stepped off the stage at the Global Climate Summit in New York. The applause had barely died when an urgent text from his operations lead flashed on the screen: "Massive battery fire at Gigafactory Nevada. Evacuation in progress. Need immediate decision on response." His stomach twisted. The Gigafactory was more than just a production site, it was a symbol of everything Tesla stood for: innovation, sustainability, the future. And now it was burning. His mind raced through protocols, emergency plans, worst-case scenarios. He knew the optics would be brutal. Investors, media, environmentalists, all watching. But worse than the damage to machinery and property was what this fire could mean for the employees on the ground. Lives mattered far beyond the spreadsheets. He dropped everything and boarded the next flight to Nevada. On arrival, the scene was chaotic. Thick black smoke billowed into the sky, acrid and heavy. Firefighters battled the blaze amid the cacophony of alarms and shouted orders. Workers huddled in safety zones, some injured, some shaken but alive. Elon felt the familiar grip of responsibility tighten, not as a CEO but as a human being. He approached the emergency command center, where engineers and safety officers scrambled to assess damage and contain the disaster. "What happened?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. Preliminary reports suggest a thermal runaway in one of the battery modules during a routine test, the safety chief replied. It spread quickly. The fire suppression system was overwhelmed. Elon nodded, his mind already working on damage control and next steps. How are the people? No fatalities, but a dozen treated for smoke inhalation. Some severe injuries. The news hit hard. No matter how prepared you are, a crisis always carries personal pain. He walked through the assembly halls, now blackened and twisted, past charred machinery and puddles of firefighting foam. His heart ached not just for the physical loss but for the human cost. Later that evening, Elon gathered his senior leadership team in a makeshift conference room. Tensions ran high. This isn't just a factory incident, Elon began. It's a test of who we are and what we value. We cannot sacrifice safety for speed anymore. That culture has to end. One executive challenged him. But we're behind schedule on the Model 3 production. If we slow down, competitors will catch up. Elon looked around, steady and calm. No competitor is worth a life. Not now, not ever. The room shifted. Some nodded, others remained skeptical. The next weeks were a whirlwind of investigations, public relations crises, and internal soul-searching. Elon spent long nights reading reports, talking to engineers, and visiting injured workers in the hospital. He insisted on transparency, releasing a full account of the incident and pledging sweeping safety reforms. We will rebuild better and safer, he told the press. But inside, he wrestled with a gnawing guilt. How could he have let this happen? Was his push for innovation reckless? Was his earlier promise to change just words? One sleepless night, he found himself alone in his office, scrolling through old journals he'd kept during SpaceX's early days. He came across a passage about risk, how it was necessary but had to be measured, respected. He realized he had veered too far toward recklessness in recent years. The fire was a brutal wake-up call. Elon called a town hall meeting at the factory, where hundreds of employees gathered in a large tent. His voice was raw but sincere. I'm sorry. Sorry we failed you. I'm sorry for the fear, the danger, the uncertainty. I'm going to do everything in my power to earn back your trust. There were tears in the crowd. Some employees shared stories of near misses, of exhaustion, of feeling unheard. Elon listened without defense or distraction. The experience humbled him in a way that no boardroom confrontation ever could. Over the following months, the company instituted new safety committees with employee representation, mandated wellness programs, and adopted slow science principles, deliberate, careful innovation over reckless speed. Elon himself took weekly factory floor shifts, working alongside technicians to understand daily realities. The media dubbed this phase Musk's reckoning. Critics remained cautious, some calling it too little, too late. But many saw the beginnings of a real change. Elon's leadership now bore the marks of vulnerability and accountability. In private moments, he reflected on what this crisis had taught him. That innovation without empathy is hollow. That leadership means owning failure publicly. That progress must never come at the expense of people's lives. And slowly, he noticed something unexpected. Trust began to rebuild, not just with employees but with his family too. Xavier reached out again, not as a headline but as a son. They talked about fears, hopes, and mistakes. Maybe you're human after all, Xavier joked during one call. Elon laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound. Trying to be. One evening, sitting on the porch of his Texas home, Elon looked up at the stars. The dream of Mars still burned bright, but now it felt balanced with something deeper, the value of Earth, of grounding, of connection. The fire had nearly broken him, but instead, it became a crucible that forged a stronger self. He knew the journey was far from over, but for the first time, he felt ready to face whatever came next with honesty and heart. And that, he thought, might be the most important breakthrough of all. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The morning light filtered through the large windows of Elon's new Texas home, casting long shadows across the room. He sat at the kitchen table, sipping black coffee, the silence heavy around him. The fire at Gigafactory Nevada had changed everything, but change wasn't always immediate or easy. Despite the progress, Elon still felt the pull of old habits, the weight of old expectations. His phone buzzed again with messages from board members and press inquiries. But today, there was something different. A private invitation had arrived from a group calling themselves the Future Leaders Coalition, young innovators, activists, and thinkers united by a desire to shape the world for good. They wanted Elon to join their next summit. He hesitated. For years, he had dismissed such groups as idealistic or impractical, focused solely on data and disruption. But now, maybe it was time to listen differently. Maybe it was time to lean into community instead of commanding it. When he arrived at the summit in Austin, he found a room buzzing with energy, diverse faces, passionate voices, and ideas that stretched beyond tech into ethics, sustainability, and social justice. The first panel he attended debated the balance between innovation and equity. Elon listened quietly as activists challenged tech's role in widening inequality, while entrepreneurs argued for market-driven solutions. During a break, a young woman named Maya approached him. "I read about your reforms after the fire," she said. "It's a start, but the system needs more than surface changes." Her gaze was steady, challenging, but not hostile. Elon responded honestly. "I know I've made mistakes. I'm trying to learn, to do better." Maya smiled slightly. "Good. Because the future belongs to those who don't just build technology, but build trust." That phrase stuck with him throughout the weekend. They discussed everything from renewable energy policies to worker cooperatives. Elon found himself asking questions he hadn't considered before, about community impact, about long-term consequences beyond profit margins. On the last day, he was invited to speak. He stood before a crowd of 1,000 young leaders, many of whom had grown up idolizing and criticizing him in equal measure. He took a deep breath and began. "I won't pretend I have all the answers. I've spent decades chasing innovation, pushing boundaries, sometimes at great cost. But what I'm realizing now is that progress is meaningless if it leaves people behind. We must build not just machines or rockets, but systems that uplift everyone." The audience responded with a mixture of skepticism and hope. After the speech, a flurry of questions came his way. How do you plan to ensure Tesla and SpaceX contribute to social equity? What lessons have you learned about leadership and responsibility? Elon answered candidly, emphasizing ongoing reforms, community engagement initiatives, and his commitment to transparency. Backstage, Maya found him again. "That was more than we expected," she said with a wry grin. "Keep going. We'll hold you accountable." Over the following months, Elon worked to transform those words into action. Tesla launched the Community Innovation Fund, directing resources to underserved areas for education and technology access. SpaceX partnered with historically black colleges to create internships and scholarships. He personally mentored young entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds, opening doors he once kept closed. But progress sparked new challenges. Some investors balked at the slower growth projections. Critics accused him of distraction. Old allies questioned his sincerity. Elon felt the familiar sting of doubt but reminded himself of the journey from recklessness to responsibility. At home, relationships continued to heal slowly. Xavier and Elon shared dinners where difficult conversations unfolded without blame. Elon's children saw a father who was more present, more patient, though still imperfect. One evening, as Elon helped his daughter with a school project on renewable energy, she asked, "Dad, why do you care so much about the future?" He smiled softly. "Because it's where you'll live." And I want to make sure it's a good place. She looked up at him with wide eyes, and he felt a surge of hope stronger than any rocket launch. Yet the shadow of his biggest regret still loomed. The question that had started this transformation, what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side, was a constant echo. Elon realized that no amount of success or invention could fill the void left by neglecting the human connections that matter most. One night, after a long day at the office, he sat alone on the porch watching fireflies flicker in the warm Texas air. He reflected on the moments he had almost lost, family dinners missed, friendships strained, trust broken. He resolved that moving forward, every decision, every innovation, would be measured not just by its brilliance but by its impact on people's lives. The road ahead was uncertain. The legacy he wanted to build was fragile and evolving. But for the first time, Elon Musk embraced the idea that greatness wasn't about being infallible or invincible, it was about being willing to change, to listen, and to grow. And that, he knew, was the most difficult and meaningful journey of all. The dawn broke over Boca Chica, Texas, casting a golden glow on the massive Starship prototype standing tall against the wide-open sky. Elon arrived early at the SpaceX test site, the familiar mix of excitement and anxiety settling in his chest. This launch was different. It wasn't just another test flight. It was a symbol of redemption, resilience, and the possibility of new beginnings. Weeks of planning, simulations, and repairs had led to this moment. The previous prototype had exploded spectacularly, footage of the fiery disaster circulating endlessly online. Critics had questioned whether Elon's vision was unrealistic, even reckless. But Elon had refused to give up. He stood among the engineers and technicians gathered around the launch pad, offering quiet words of encouragement and steady presence. The team looked to him not as an untouchable genius, but as a leader who had endured failure and returned. "Today, we show what it means to fail forward," he said simply. The countdown began. Engines roared to life, smoke billowed, and Starship slowly lifted off the ground. For seconds, it climbed steadily, defying gravity and doubt alike. Then, suddenly, a warning flashed on the control monitors. "Anomaly detected," the flight director announced. Elon's heart pounded. The rocket began to wobble. He watched helplessly as it veered off course, flames licking at the fuselage. Then the explosion. Less catastrophic than before, but still a fiery failure. The ground shook, and silence fell over the crowd. Elon felt the familiar sting of disappointment but refused despair. "We learn," he told his team. "We adapt. We try again." Back in the operations center, the mood was somber but determined. Elon paced, reviewing data, listening to engineers' reports. Each failure was a lesson, a piece of the puzzle. Yet beneath the technical challenges, a deeper struggle simmered, his own fear of repeating past mistakes. The fire at Gigafactory Nevada had left scars, but this launch failure reopened old wounds. He questioned whether his drive to push boundaries sometimes blinded him to risks, both human and technological. Late that night, Elon sat alone in the observation deck overlooking the launch site. The stars twinkled coldly above. He pulled out a worn photo of his family, a reminder of what truly mattered beyond rockets and profits. A message popped up on his phone from Xavier. "Don't forget to take care of yourself. We're here." Elon smiled softly, feeling the steady warmth of connection growing stronger. The next morning, he called an all-hands meeting. "I want to talk not just about the rocket, but about us," he said, eyes meeting those of his team. "Space exploration is hard. It tests our limits. But it shouldn't cost us our well-being or our humanity." He announced new policies to support mental health, rest periods, and open communication at SpaceX. "We innovate best when we are whole," he said. "Not just machines, but people." The team responded with renewed energy. Some confessed feeling overwhelmed by the relentless pace, others expressed gratitude for the shift toward balance. Elon's willingness to be vulnerable inspired a culture change, one that valued resilience over relentless perfection. Meanwhile, Tesla's progress continued alongside SpaceX's challenges. The new energy storage initiative was gaining traction in underserved communities, and Elon made surprise visits to several pilot projects, meeting with local leaders and residents. At one community center in Detroit, a young engineer named Marcus shared his story. Growing up in a neighborhood plagued by pollution and limited opportunities, Marcus had found a chance at a better life through Tesla's apprenticeship program. Elon listened intently as Marcus described how clean energy and education transformed his outlook. "It's more than just jobs," Marcus said. "It's hope." Elon felt a profound connection to that hope. An antidote to the guilt that had haunted him for years. Back at home, family dinners grew more frequent and meaningful. Elon's children challenged him with questions about ethics, climate change, and social responsibility. He no longer deflected but engaged openly, learning from their perspectives. One evening, his daughter asked, "Dad, do you ever worry that you're trying to do too much?" He paused, then answered honestly. "Sometimes. But I've learned it's okay to ask for help, and to slow down when needed." This new humility deepened his relationships and grounded his vision in reality. Yet the external pressures remained relentless. Investors pushed for faster returns. Media cycles churned out every misstep. Competitors emerged, hungry to fill any perceived gaps. Elon grappled daily with balancing visionary ambition and pragmatic leadership. In the midst of this, a surprising offer arrived, an invitation to collaborate with a global coalition focused on ethical AI development. Elon had long expressed concerns about artificial intelligence's potential dangers, but this was the first time he was asked to join a collective effort. The summit in Geneva brought together technologists, ethicists, policymakers, and activists from around the world. Discussions were intense, sometimes heated, as competing interests collided. Elon found himself challenged to rethink assumptions and embrace complexity beyond engineering solutions. He realized that technology alone couldn't solve humanity's problems, it required empathy, dialogue, and shared responsibility. After days of debate, the coalition drafted a framework emphasizing transparency, inclusivity, and human-centered design. Elon committed Tesla and SpaceX to these principles, marking another step in his evolving leadership philosophy. Returning home, Elon reflected on the past year, a year marked by failure, growth, pain, and hope. The biggest regret that had haunted him was no longer just a burden but a catalyst for change. He understood now that success wasn't about never failing but about how you respond to failure, with honesty, compassion, and resolve. As he watched the sun set over the Texas plains, Elon felt a quiet peace. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, he embraced the uncertainty with courage and grace. The future awaited, shaped not just by rockets and cars, but by a man learning to lead with heart. The Texas heat was relentless as Elon stood outside the sprawling Tesla Gigafactory, watching a convoy of semi-trucks loaded with the first batches of new battery cells roll out toward distant cities. Months had passed since the fire, and the factory now hummed with renewed purpose and a vigilant commitment to safety. Elon's team had worked tirelessly, rebuilding not just the physical plant but the culture inside it. He felt pride, but also the heavy weight of responsibility that never truly left him. The success of the new battery design was crucial, not just for Tesla's future, but for the global push toward sustainable energy. Yet, despite the outward progress, Elon wrestled with an internal unease that had nothing to do with technology. It was the lingering question of whether he could truly change, or if he was doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. Inside the factory's sleek conference room, Elon sat with his executive leadership team. Charts and projections flashed on the screen. The board wanted growth, fast. But Elon was advocating for cautious expansion, emphasizing quality and safety over speed. "We can't afford another accident," he insisted. "Not just because of the cost, but because of trust. We need to rebuild trust with our employees, our customers, and the world." The CFO countered, if we slow down, competitors will steal market share. Investors are restless. Elon looked around the room, feeling the tension tighten. He knew the pressure was real, but so was the risk. I'm not willing to sacrifice lives for profits, he said firmly. Our success depends on our integrity. Outside, workers moved methodically, their faces a mix of focus and cautious optimism. Elon had made a point to walk the factory floor daily, speaking directly to the people whose hands shaped the future. Their stories, their fears and hopes, grounded him in a way no boardroom ever could. One afternoon, he met Lisa, a technician who had been injured in the fire and returned to work with a determination that inspired him. I want to be part of something that lasts, she said quietly. Not just a job, but a mission. Her words echoed the vision Elon had long carried but sometimes lost sight of amid deadlines and headlines. At home, the rhythm of life had shifted. Family dinners were less rushed, conversations more open. Elon's children had grown more curious about his world, asking probing questions about climate change, ethics, and responsibility. He answered without deflection, sometimes admitting he didn't have all the answers but was learning. One evening, his daughter Emily said, "Dad, do you think we can really fix the planet?" Elon smiled, feeling the hope and urgency in her voice. "We have to try, Emily. It's the only choice we have." But amid the progress and optimism, new challenges emerged. A whistleblower inside Tesla leaked documents alleging lapses in safety protocols and underreported incidents. The story exploded across media outlets, igniting a firestorm of criticism. Elon faced a crossroads. Some advised silence and damage control, others urged transparency. Remembering the lessons of the Gigafactory fire, Elon chose openness. He held a company-wide meeting streamed live, addressing the allegations directly. "We've made mistakes," he admitted. "But hiding them is not the answer. We are committed to full transparency and corrective action." The honesty was risky, but it resonated with many employees and the public. The company launched an independent investigation and revamped its safety oversight. Trust was fragile but reparable. Meanwhile, SpaceX prepared for a critical milestone, the first orbital test flight of Starship. The launch site buzzed with anticipation and tension. Elon knew the stakes were high, both technically and personally. Years of dreams, failures, and relentless work had led to this moment. On launch day, the countdown began with a hushed crowd watching anxiously. Engines ignited, and Starship soared skyward, climbing steadily through the atmosphere. Elon's heart raced as telemetry streamed in. The rocket reached orbit and deployed its payload successfully. Cheers erupted. It was a triumph born of resilience and relentless iteration. That night, Elon stood alone under the vast Texas sky, the enormity of the achievement settling over him. He thought of the journey, from reckless ambition to tempered vision, from isolation to connection. The road had been long and painful, but each setback had forged a stronger self. As dawn approached, a message popped up on his phone from Maya, the young activist he had met months ago. "Your openness is a start," she wrote. "Keep building bridges." Elon typed back a simple reply, "Learning every day." The future was uncertain, filled with challenges yet to come. But Elon Musk, once defined by singular ambition and a solitary drive, was becoming something more, a leader shaped by failure, humility, and hope. And that made all the difference. The soft hum of machinery filled the expansive Tesla design lab as Elon stood by a prototype electric vehicle, his mind swirling with possibilities and doubts. Years ago, this space would have ignited his restless energy, a playground for unrestrained innovation. Now, however, the thrill was tempered by the weight of responsibility, not just to shareholders or the environment, but to the people whose lives his work touched. He ran a hand through his hair, recalling the question that had unlocked his transformation: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? The question echoed in his mind during every major decision. Tesla's newest project aimed to revolutionize urban transportation with a fully autonomous, affordable electric vehicle designed for mass adoption. But the road ahead was riddled with obstacles, regulatory hurdles, technical glitches, and fierce competition. During a design review meeting, the tension was palpable. Engineers debated the merits of advanced sensors versus more affordable alternatives, while marketing pushed for a faster launch to capture market share. Elon listened, weighing innovation against accessibility. He knew that the product's success hinged not just on cutting-edge technology but on trust and inclusivity. After the meeting, Elon walked through the lab, stopping to chat with a young engineer named Sarah. She was one of the few women in the room, her eyes bright with determination. "What keeps you going when things get tough?" Elon asked. Sarah paused, then said, "Knowing this could change lives, my family's and millions of others. That's enough to push me through." Her answer struck a chord deep within him. It was this shared purpose that he realized needed to drive Tesla forward. But external pressures mounted. Critics questioned whether Tesla's aggressive push into self-driving technology was premature, citing safety concerns and recent accidents involving autonomous vehicles. Regulators tightened scrutiny, threatening costly delays. Elon found himself in a familiar pattern of tension between risk and caution. In a rare moment of vulnerability during a late-night call with his executive team, he admitted, "I'm scared. Not of failure, but of losing the trust we've worked so hard to build." The team responded with a mix of empathy and resolve, reminding him that leadership was not about being fearless but about courageously facing uncertainty. Meanwhile, at home, Elon's relationships continued to evolve. Xavier had become a steady presence, bridging gaps with patient understanding. Conversations once fraught with tension now held moments of genuine connection. Elon's children grew more independent but remained anchors in his life. One Sunday afternoon, Elon and Emily sat in the garden, watching bees flit among the flowers. She turned to him and asked, "Dad, do you think people can really change?" Elon considered the question carefully. "I believe they can," he said slowly. "Change takes time and effort, but it's possible. I'm living proof." The moment filled him with quiet hope. However, the pressures of public scrutiny never fully receded. A new biography hit shelves, painting Elon as a complex figure, brilliant but flawed, driven yet sometimes reckless. The book stirred heated debates across media platforms. Elon wrestled with the portrayal, recognizing kernels of truth alongside exaggeration. He realized that controlling the narrative was impossible. The best he could do was live authentically and keep striving. At SpaceX, preparations intensified for the next phase, crewed missions to the International Space Station. The prospect of sending humans aboard Starship was both thrilling and daunting. Elon spent hours reviewing safety protocols, simulations, and contingency plans. The risks were immense, but so was the potential for progress. In a quiet moment with the mission director, Elon confided, "Every launch is a leap of faith. But the greatest risk is never trying." The crewed launch proceeded successfully, marking a historic milestone. Elon watched the live feed, heart pounding as the capsule docked with the station. The astronauts' smiles were a testament to human courage and the power of vision tempered by care. This victory fueled Elon's conviction that innovation must serve humanity's greater good. Yet, amid these triumphs, the question of legacy loomed large. Elon often found himself contemplating what he would leave behind, not just in patents or projects, but in values and relationships. During a quiet evening walk, he received an unexpected call from an old friend, Claire, a psychologist who had counseled him during difficult times. Their conversation delved into themes of forgiveness, self-compassion, and the importance of connection. Claire's words resonated deeply. "You can't rewrite the past," she said gently, "but you can shape the future by embracing who you are, flaws, regrets, and all." The call rekindled a determination to embrace imperfection as part of growth. Days later, Elon hosted a town hall meeting at Tesla, inviting employees to share feedback candidly. The atmosphere was electric with honesty and hope. Stories of struggles and triumphs interwove, painting a mosaic of collective effort. Elon spoke openly about his journey, acknowledging mistakes and expressing gratitude. The meeting ended with a standing ovation. As Elon stepped outside into the crisp night air, he felt a profound sense of connection, not just to his teams but to a larger community striving for change. He understood that leadership was a shared journey, marked by vulnerability and resilience. Returning home, he paused in the hallway, watching his children asleep in their rooms. The fragility and beauty of life were never more apparent. Elon knew the road ahead would be challenging, filled with uncertainties and hard choices. But he was no longer alone. The biggest regret that had once threatened to define him had instead opened a path toward empathy, humility, and hope. And with that, he was ready to keep moving forward, one question, one step, one change at a time. The bright lights of Silicon Valley glittered beyond the conference room windows as Elon leaned back in his chair, exhaustion tugging at his bones despite the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. Today had been a marathon of meetings, investors demanding faster timelines, engineers pushing for more resources, and regulators tightening the screws on autonomous driving approvals. Elon's mind raced through the day's challenges, but his thoughts kept returning to a single conversation he'd had earlier with a longtime confidant, Amanda, a mentor who had witnessed his rise and his stumbles. She had asked him, bluntly, "What's the cost of all this? What are you willing to sacrifice, and what won't you?" The question lingered, sharper than any boardroom argument. Elon had always been willing to sacrifice everything for progress, his sleep, his health, his privacy, even relationships. But lately, he realized the price might be too high. Back in the quieter solitude of his office, Elon allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The relentless pace had dulled his joy, replaced by a constant, gnawing tension. His biggest regret. Years ago, the moments he had pushed too hard, neglected those closest to him, ignored his own limits, no longer felt like just a haunting shadow. It was a guidepost, a cautionary tale etched in experience. He needed to change. He reached out to his therapist, Maya, setting up a session for the next day. Opening up had never been easy for Elon, but the conversations with Maya had become a lifeline, a place to confront vulnerability without judgment. The next morning, Maya greeted him with her usual calm warmth. Their session began with Elon confessing the doubts and fears swirling inside him, fear of failure, fear of losing connection, fear of losing himself. Maya listened, then gently asked, "What would it look like if you gave yourself permission to be imperfect?" Elon was silent, the question resonating deeply. For so long, he had equated imperfection with failure. One Sunday afternoon, Elon and Emily sat in the garden, watching bees flit among the flowers. She turned to him and asked, "Dad, do you think people can really change?" Elon considered the question carefully. "I believe they can," he said slowly. "Change takes time and effort, but it's possible. I'm living proof." The moment filled him with quiet hope. However, the pressures of public scrutiny never fully receded. A new biography hit shelves, painting Elon as a complex figure, brilliant but flawed, driven yet sometimes reckless. The book stirred heated debates across media platforms. Elon wrestled with the portrayal, recognizing kernels of truth alongside exaggeration. He realized that controlling the narrative was impossible, the best he could do was live authentically and keep striving. At SpaceX, preparations intensified for the next phase, crewed missions to the International Space Station. The prospect of sending humans aboard Starship was both thrilling and daunting. Elon spent hours reviewing safety protocols, simulations, and contingency plans. The risks were immense, but so was the potential for progress. In a quiet moment with the mission director, Elon confided, "Every launch is a leap of faith. But the greatest risk is never trying." The crewed launch proceeded successfully, marking a historic milestone. Elon watched the live feed, heart pounding as the capsule docked with the station. The astronauts' smiles were a testament to human courage and the power of vision tempered by care. This victory fueled Elon's conviction that innovation must serve humanity's greater good. Yet, amid these triumphs, the question of legacy loomed large. Elon often found himself contemplating what he would leave behind, not just in patents or projects, but in values and relationships. During a quiet evening walk, he received an unexpected call from an old friend, Claire, a psychologist who had counseled him during difficult times. Their conversation delved into themes of forgiveness, self-compassion, and the importance of connection. Claire's words resonated deeply. "You can't rewrite the past," she said gently, "but you can shape the future by embracing who you are, flaws, regrets, and all." The call rekindled a determination to embrace imperfection as part of growth. Days later, Elon hosted a town hall meeting at Tesla, inviting employees to share feedback candidly. The atmosphere was electric with honesty and hope. Stories of struggles and triumphs interwove, painting a mosaic of collective effort. Elon spoke openly about his journey, acknowledging mistakes and expressing gratitude. The pressures of leadership sometimes strained his relationships with close friends. Xavier and Elon had moments of friction, honest confrontations about expectations and boundaries. Through these difficult conversations, their bond grew stronger, rooted in mutual respect and authenticity. Elon realized that connection required effort and openness, not just shared goals. One late night, Elon found himself scrolling through old journals, scribbled thoughts from his early days, raw and unfiltered. He marveled at the distance traveled, the mistakes made, the lessons learned, the evolution from restless youth to seasoned leader. A quote he had once admired stood out: "The measure of success is not how high you climb, but how gracefully you rise after falling." It encapsulated his journey perfectly. As the chapter closed, Elon stood on the balcony of his home, gazing at the night sky dotted with stars, the same sky that had fueled his dreams since childhood. The biggest regret that once weighed him down had transformed into a compass, guiding him toward a future shaped not only by innovation but by compassion, balance, and connection. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, Elon embraced it with a steady heart, ready to face whatever came next. The early morning sun filtered through the curtains of Elon's study, casting a warm glow over stacks of papers, blueprints, and scattered notes. He sat quietly, sipping his coffee, reflecting on how far the journey had come since that pivotal question that had forced him to open up, his biggest regret, once a heavy burden, now a catalyst for change. Yet even as progress marched forward, the complexities of leadership, innovation, and human connection grew more intense and intricate. Elon had learned that success was never a straight line, it was a winding path filled with setbacks, breakthroughs, and moments of profound clarity. That morning, his thoughts turned to the launch of Tesla's new urban mobility initiative, a fleet of electric scooters and bikes aimed at solving last-mile transportation in congested cities. It was a bold move, a departure from the grand rockets and luxury cars, but Elon saw it as a crucial step toward making sustainable transport accessible to all. At a briefing, his team outlined the logistics, safety concerns, and potential impact. Elon's mind jumped between technical details and bigger questions: how would cities respond? Would the public embrace this change? Could this really make a difference? Later that day, Elon joined a pilot ride through the streets of San Francisco. The hum of electric scooters buzzing past pedestrians and cars filled the air, a symbol of urban innovation meeting everyday life. Elon smiled, feeling a spark of optimism. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Traditional transportation industries and local regulators voiced skepticism and resistance. Some media outlets questioned the safety and practicality of the new initiative. Elon knew that every breakthrough stirred controversy, nothing worthwhile came easily. Around the same time, news surfaced about SpaceX's plans to collaborate with international partners for a mission to Mars. The prospect reignited Elon's long-held dream of making humanity a multiplanetary species, yet also raised ethical and logistical debates. Was it right to invest billions into space travel while Earth still faced urgent crises? Elon grappled with these questions in conversations with advisors, scientists, and environmentalists. He acknowledged the tension between exploration and stewardship, striving to balance vision with responsibility. On the personal front, Elon's relationship with Claire, the psychologist who had once helped him confront his vulnerabilities, deepened into a quiet friendship grounded in mutual respect and understanding. Their conversations often stretched late into the night, exploring themes of identity, legacy, and the meaning of success. Claire challenged Elon to look beyond the public persona and embrace his authentic self, including the imperfections and fears he sometimes tried to hide. One evening, after a long discussion about the pressures of expectation, Elon shared a rare glimpse of tenderness. "Sometimes, I worry I'm losing myself in all this," he admitted. "The drive, the projects, the spotlight, it can be overwhelming." Claire nodded. "But you're also discovering what it means to be human. That's where true strength lies." The word stayed with Elon, a balm for the restless mind. Meanwhile, Tesla's board pushed for faster expansion into international markets, especially China and Europe. Investors were eager for returns, while Elon balanced the risks of overextension with the promise of global impact. Navigating geopolitical tensions, supply chain disruptions, and cultural differences tested his leadership and patience. One afternoon, during a tense video call with international partners, a technical glitch caused confusion, nearly derailing negotiations. Elon stayed calm, using humor and empathy to bridge gaps. The deal eventually moved forward, a small victory in the complex dance of global business. Despite the chaos, Elon remained committed to the core mission, accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. He launched a new initiative focused on community solar projects, aiming to bring clean power to underserved neighborhoods. The program's early success brought a renewed sense of purpose and connection, reminding Elon that technology could be a force for equity and inclusion. At home, Elon continued to nurture his family relationships. His children, now teenagers, challenged him in ways that forced growth and reflection. One night, his daughter Emily confronted him about the time he had missed her school recital years ago. Elon listened without defensiveness, apologized sincerely, and promised to be more present. The conversation was difficult but healing. It marked a turning point in their bond, moving from distance to deeper understanding. Yet, public scrutiny remained relentless. A viral social media controversy erupted over comments Elon had made about artificial intelligence risks, sparking heated debates and polarized opinions. Elon engaged carefully, clarifying his stance and emphasizing the need for thoughtful regulation and ethical innovation. The episode was a reminder that even well-intentioned words could ignite fierce backlash in the digital age. Through it all, Elon leaned on his support network, trusted friends, advisors, and mentors who grounded him amid the noise. He also deepened his commitment to personal growth practices, including meditation and journaling, which helped him navigate stress and maintain focus. As the year progressed, Elon prepared for a keynote address at a major global tech summit. The theme, innovation, responsibility, and the future of humanity. Behind the scenes, he wrestled with how to convey a message that was both visionary and grounded, honest about challenges yet inspiring hope. On the day of the speech, standing before an audience of thousands and millions more watching online, Elon spoke with a newfound clarity and humility. He shared stories of failure and redemption, of the power of asking hard questions, and the importance of empathy in leadership. His words resonated deeply, sparking conversations across industries and communities. After the speech, a young engineer approached Elon, thanking him for acknowledging the emotional realities behind the technology. "It means a lot," she said, "to know the person leading this cares about more than just numbers." Elon smiled, feeling the profound truth in her words. The journey was far from over. Challenges loomed on the horizon: climate change urgency, technological ethics, personal balance. But Elon embraced the path ahead with courage and compassion. The biggest regret that had once threatened to define him had instead become a foundation for growth, a source of wisdom, and a beacon for others. And in that transformation, Elon Musk found not just success, but meaning. The dim glow of the computer screen illuminated Elon's face as he sat alone in his home office late into the night. The world outside was quiet, but his mind was anything but. Thoughts raced through possibilities, regrets, and the ever-present weight of expectations. Tonight, the question that had changed everything resurfaced with renewed intensity: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? It was a question he had asked himself countless times since that turning point years ago, but now it carried a new urgency. Recent events had shaken the foundations he had built. Unexpected failures, personal losses, and the relentless scrutiny of the public eye. Elon reflected on the journey so far: the rocket launches that defied gravity and sometimes failed spectacularly, the electric cars that had redefined transportation yet faced production nightmares, the relationships strained by relentless ambition. In the silence, he acknowledged a truth he had once resisted: success without connection was hollow. His regrets, once sources of pain, had become mirrors reflecting what truly mattered: love, empathy, and the courage to be vulnerable. He reached for a worn journal, one filled with notes, sketches, and candid reflections. Flipping through the pages, he found an entry from a year earlier: the hardest battles are not in the boardroom or on the launch pad but within ourselves. The words resonated deeply. Elon knew that to move forward, he needed to embrace not just his accomplishments but also his imperfections. The next morning, he began his day differently. Instead of diving into emails and meetings, he took time to meditate, grounding himself in the present. He then called his sister Tosca, with whom he hadn't spoken in weeks. Their conversation was tentative at first, but soon warmth returned, bridging the distance that time and tension had created. Family, he realized, was a vital anchor. At Tesla, a new challenge awaited. The company was about to unveil a revolutionary battery technology that promised to drastically reduce costs and increase range. The stakes were high, investors and consumers alike held their breath. Elon threw himself into preparation for the launch event, balancing technical details with the emotional story behind the innovation, the countless hours of trial and error, the sacrifices made by the team, and the vision of a cleaner future. The day of the unveiling arrived. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation as Elon stepped onto the stage. His voice was steady but carried an undercurrent of passion. As he explained the breakthrough, he shared candid anecdotes about the setbacks and the people behind the scenes. The crowd responded with enthusiasm and hope. The event was a success, but Elon knew this was only one step on a long journey. Meanwhile, personal challenges lingered. His relationship with Xavier, though strengthened, still required effort and understanding. Conversations about co-parenting, priorities, and individual growth were ongoing. Elon learned that love was less about perfection and more about presence and patience. Outside work and family, Elon found solace in nature. Weekend hikes and quiet moments watching sunsets became rituals that replenished his spirit. He marveled at the simple beauty of the world, a reminder of why sustainability mattered so deeply. Yet, public controversies continued. A data breach at one of Tesla's facilities sparked fears about security and privacy. Elon addressed the issue head-on, ordering an internal investigation and personally reassuring customers and stakeholders. Transparency and accountability, he emphasized, were non-negotiable. In a rare interview, Elon reflected on the evolving landscape of technology and ethics. Innovation without responsibility is reckless, he said. We must ask not just what we can do, but what we should do. The interview sparked important dialogues across industries, highlighting the need for thoughtful governance. As the year progressed, Elon embarked on a philanthropic initiative focused on education and mentorship for underserved youth. He saw this as a way to give back and nurture the next generation of dreamers and doers. Visits to schools and community centers brought fresh perspectives and renewed energy. One visit, in particular, touched him deeply: a young student's question, "How do you keep going when things get hard?" Elon smiled, recalling his own struggles. "You find your why," he answered. "That thing that makes you get up every morning, no matter what." The answer felt true not just to the student but to Elon himself. Reflecting on the past, Elon recognized the power of that one question, the catalyst that had forced him to confront his regrets and reshape his life. It was a question he now shared openly, inviting others to explore their own journeys with honesty and courage. On a quiet evening, Elon wrote a letter to his children, sharing lessons learned and hopes for their futures. He spoke of resilience, kindness, and the importance of dreaming big while staying grounded. The act of writing was cathartic, a bridge between past mistakes and future aspirations. As the chapter closed, Elon stood on the balcony of his home, gazing at the stars that had always inspired him. The vastness of the universe reminded him of life's mysteries and possibilities. His biggest regret had not vanished, but it no longer defined him. Instead, it had transformed into a beacon, illuminating a path toward a life of purpose, connection, and meaning. The journey was ongoing, filled with challenges and triumphs, but Elon Musk faced it with a steady heart and an open mind, ready to embrace whatever came next. The hum of activity in the SpaceX mission control room was a stark contrast to the quiet stillness that had settled over Elon's mind in recent weeks. After months of intense focus on engineering and launch timelines, a new kind of challenge demanded his attention, one that wasn't measured in rocket fuel or software code but in human connection and legacy. The successful deployment of the Starship prototype had been a milestone, yet Elon felt a growing restlessness beneath the triumph. What was the true meaning of these achievements if they didn't inspire or unite people? The question gnawed at him, resurfacing with the same urgency as the one that had opened his heart years ago. What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? At the same time, Tesla's new factory in Berlin was nearing completion, symbolizing the company's expanding footprint and ambition. But as construction progressed, local communities expressed concerns about environmental impact and disruption. Elon took these voices seriously, meeting with residents and activists to listen and engage honestly. These interactions challenged him to reconcile innovation with empathy and sustainability, not just as corporate buzzwords but as lived commitments. During one meeting, an elderly woman named Marta shared her fears about losing the natural beauty of her hometown. Her words struck a chord. Elon realized that progress must honor the people and places it touched, or risk alienation and failure. Inspired, he initiated new policies to minimize environmental footprint and invest in community projects. This chapter of his journey was marked by a deeper awareness that leadership meant more than bold visions, it meant responsibility and respect. Meanwhile, Elon's personal life grew richer but also more complicated. His bond with Claire deepened into a partnership grounded in shared values and honest communication. They navigated the complexities of public attention together, finding solace in private moments of laughter and reflection. Claire encouraged Elon to explore his creative side beyond technology, sparking renewed interests in music and art. One afternoon, Elon surprised her by composing a simple melody on the piano, a humble yet heartfelt expression of the emotions he often struggled to articulate. The gesture was met with warmth and a sense of intimacy rare in his high-profile world. At the same time, Elon's children were growing into their own identities, each with unique challenges and dreams. Elon made a conscious effort to support them without imposing expectations, learning the delicate balance between guidance and freedom. His daughter Emily's passion for environmental activism reminded him of the importance of nurturing individual purpose within family ties. Public life, however, continued to test Elon's resilience. A critical article accusing Tesla of labor violations sparked widespread debate and social media uproar. Elon responded swiftly, launching an independent audit and inviting journalists to witness workplace reforms firsthand. The experience underscored the importance of transparency and humility in addressing criticism. He acknowledged imperfections while reaffirming commitment to improvement. The episode was a turning point, shifting public perception from skepticism to cautious optimism. On the innovation front, SpaceX prepared for a historic mission, a crewed flight to the International Space Station. Elon's role was both visionary and personal. He saw this mission as a step closer to humanity's future among the stars. The launch day was tense, filled with technical checks and final preparations. Elon stood beside the rocket, feeling the weight of hopes and fears mingling in the air. As the engines ignited and the craft ascended, cheers erupted, yet Elon's gaze remained steady, focused on the horizon. The success was exhilarating, yet it deepened his reflection on what lay beyond the technical feat, the human spirit's capacity for courage and discovery. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Elon engaged in conversations about the ethical implications of artificial intelligence, a field advancing at breakneck speed. He participated in forums and roundtables, advocating for balanced regulation that promoted innovation while safeguarding humanity. His evolving views demonstrated a maturity that valued collaboration over conquest. As the chapter progressed, Elon also confronted moments of doubt and vulnerability. Late nights spent alone were sometimes filled with questions about identity and purpose. Who was he beyond the titles and accolades? Could he be truly known and accepted? These internal dialogues fueled growth and introspection, leading to breakthroughs in emotional intelligence and self-awareness. The lessons learned spilled into his leadership style. He became more attuned to his team's well-being and encouraged open dialogue about challenges and failures. This cultural shift within his companies fostered creativity and resilience. One particularly meaningful moment occurred during a team retreat in the mountains, where Elon shared stories of his own struggles and regrets. His openness inspired others to share their experiences, creating bonds of trust and shared purpose. The retreat became a symbol of transformation, proof that vulnerability could be a source of strength. As the year drew to a close, Elon reflected on the interconnectedness of his experiences, the blend of innovation, responsibility, connection, and growth. The question that had once haunted him had evolved into a compass, guiding not only his decisions but also his relationships and self-understanding. Standing at the intersection of past regrets and future possibilities, Elon Musk embraced a new vision of success, one that balanced ambition with empathy, invention with introspection, and power with humility. The journey continued, filled with challenges yet illuminated by hope, reminding him and those who followed that the greatest breakthroughs often came from the courage to face oneself honestly and to open up when it mattered most. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sprawling Tesla-designed studio as Elon stood quietly by a large window, gazing out at the city skyline. The hum of creative energy filled the room, engineers and designers moving back and forth, debating ideas, sketching new concepts. Yet, for Elon, a familiar restlessness churned beneath the surface. Despite the outward success, he wrestled internally with the sense that something essential was missing, a void that achievement alone couldn't fill. It was a feeling that had haunted him since the moment he had first opened up about his biggest regret. That confession had been both a release and a revelation, but it also marked the beginning of a deeper journey, one that required confronting uncomfortable truths and embracing vulnerability in a way he never had before. Over the past months, Elon had taken deliberate steps to change, not just in business strategy but in how he related to those around him. The transition was neither smooth nor simple. At times, old habits and defenses resurfaced, threatening to pull him back into isolation and relentless drive. Yet, moments of connection, whether a heartfelt conversation with a close friend, a genuine laugh with his children, or a quiet walk with Claire, provided grounding and perspective. That day, a new challenge awaited him. Tesla's board had called for a meeting to discuss a proposed merger with a competitor, a move that promised growth but also risked diluting the company's core values. Elon knew that any decision would ripple far beyond balance sheets and stock prices. It would affect the lives of employees, customers, and communities. During the meeting, tensions ran high. Board members debated fiercely, weighing financial incentives against cultural integrity. Elon spoke passionately about the importance of maintaining Tesla's mission and spirit. "We cannot sacrifice our soul for short-term gains," he said. His conviction resonated with some, while others remained skeptical. After hours of discussion, the decision was deferred, signaling more negotiations ahead. The episode underscored the complex dance of leadership, balancing vision, pragmatism, and ethics. Meanwhile, Elon's work with SpaceX took a new and unexpected turn. The company had been invited to collaborate on a humanitarian project aimed at deploying satellite technology to provide internet access to remote and underserved regions. The initiative aligned closely with Elon's evolving sense of purpose, using technology not just to innovate but to uplift and connect people worldwide. He threw himself into the project, coordinating with global partners and local communities. Visits to villages and towns powered by the new connectivity left a lasting impression. Elon witnessed firsthand how access to information could open doors to education, health, and economic opportunity. These experiences deepened his commitment to inclusive progress. Yet, amidst these external triumphs, personal challenges loomed. A disagreement with Xavier about parenting approaches revealed lingering tensions. Elon realized that love required not just presence but patience and flexibility. Counseling sessions helped both men understand their perspectives and find common ground. The process was difficult but ultimately strengthened their co-parenting partnership. At the same time, Claire encouraged Elon to explore mindfulness practices more fully. Together, they attended retreats and workshops focused on emotional intelligence and compassion. Elon found that these practices provided tools not only for personal peace but for leadership marked by empathy and authenticity. One retreat included a powerful exercise in forgiveness, both of oneself and others. For Elon, this was transformative. He confronted the harsh self-judgment that had fueled much of his early drive and began to embrace a gentler, more hopeful view of his own humanity. The ripple effects touched his relationships and decisions. In the public arena, Elon faced new scrutiny as debates about AI regulation intensified. Critics accused him of fearmongering, supporters hailed him as a visionary warning against unintended consequences. Elon navigated the polarized landscape with a steady voice, advocating for collaborative frameworks and ethical standards. His willingness to engage openly with skeptics and experts alike helped shift the conversation toward constructive dialogue. Meanwhile, Tesla prepared to launch a groundbreaking new vehicle designed for affordability and sustainability, aimed at broadening access to electric transportation. The project was ambitious and fraught with technical and market challenges. Elon's leadership was tested as production setbacks and supply chain issues threatened timelines. Through it all, he maintained a calm determination, inspiring his team to innovate solutions rather than succumb to pressure. The launch event was a moment of triumph, celebrated not just for the product but for the perseverance and teamwork behind it. Reflecting on the journey, Elon recognized that the question that had once forced him to open up was now a guiding light. It reminded him that vulnerability was not weakness but a source of connection and growth. As night fell, Elon stood once more on his balcony, looking up at the stars. The vast expanse above mirrored the infinite possibilities within and around him. He felt a quiet confidence, a blend of humility and hope, that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would meet them with an open heart and a steadfast spirit. The story was far from over, but Elon Musk had embraced a new chapter, one defined not only by technological breakthroughs but by the profound human truths discovered along the way. Elon's journey had reached a new crossroads, one where the boundaries between personal growth and public impact blurred into a singular, defining moment. The past months had been a whirlwind of innovation, reflection, and unexpected lessons. Yet, beneath the surface, Elon felt the weight of an even greater challenge, a question not about technology or business, but about legacy and meaning. One evening, as he sat in the quiet of his home library, a message arrived from an old mentor, reminding him of the power of storytelling. It was a simple note, urging Elon to share not just his successes but also the vulnerabilities and regrets that had shaped him. The message struck a deep chord. Elon realized that his story, his journey through triumphs and failures, could inspire others far beyond the boardrooms and launchpads. The idea took root, and soon he began drafting a memoir, a candid account that peeled back the layers of ambition to reveal the human heart beneath. Writing was both cathartic and challenging. Memories surfaced, some painful, others joyful, each demanding honesty and courage. Elon grappled with how to portray his biggest regret without diminishing the strides he had made. He sought to show that growth came not from perfection but from facing one's flaws with integrity. Meanwhile, at Tesla, a new initiative was underway to develop sustainable energy solutions for disaster relief. Elon envisioned portable solar units and energy storage systems that could provide power in crisis zones, aiding communities when they needed it most. The project embodied his evolving mission, to harness technology for real-world impact that transcended profit margins. Coordinating with humanitarian organizations and engineers, Elon pushed the team to innovate with urgency and compassion. The initiative faced logistical hurdles and funding challenges, yet the team's resolve never wavered. Successes, small but significant, began to accumulate: solar units deployed after hurricanes, batteries powering clinics in remote areas, lives touched by light where darkness once prevailed. These tangible outcomes fueled Elon's belief that technology's greatest value lay in its ability to uplift humanity. On the personal front, Elon's relationships continued to deepen in unexpected ways. He and Claire planned a quiet getaway to reconnect away from the relentless pace of work and media attention. The retreat offered space for heartfelt conversations about dreams, fears, and hopes. They discussed the complexities of balancing ambition with presence, and the necessity of choosing love even amid uncertainty. The experience renewed Elon's commitment to nurturing connection over conquest. Yet, as with all journeys, challenges persisted. A sudden health scare involving his father brought urgency to family bonds long deferred. Elon found himself navigating old wounds and unspoken regrets, striving to build bridges rather than walls. The episode underscored the fragility and preciousness of life, reinforcing his desire to live with authenticity and grace. Back in the public eye, Elon faced a controversial decision about releasing a new AI-driven product. Concerns about privacy and ethical implications sparked fierce debate. Elon convened a panel of diverse experts, ethicists, technologists, community leaders, to guide the process. The collaborative approach marked a shift from unilateral decisions to inclusive governance. Although not all criticism could be quelled, the effort demonstrated a new model of responsible innovation. The product launch, though cautious, set a precedent for balancing progress with prudence. As the year drew to a close, Elon's memoir neared completion. The process had transformed him, revealing vulnerabilities that he once saw as weaknesses but now embraced as strengths. He planned a series of public readings and discussions, inviting others to engage with the stories of failure, redemption, and hope. The reception was overwhelming. Letters and messages poured in from people who found courage in his openness. The final chapter of the memoir echoed the question that had changed everything: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? Elon answered with a message of resilience and connection, that even in our darkest moments, the human spirit can find light through honesty, love, and perseverance. Standing before a crowd at his first public reading, Elon felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The applause was not just for his achievements but for the shared humanity that bound him to his audience. In that moment, he understood that his biggest regret was not a chain but a catalyst, a force that had pushed him toward a fuller, richer life. As he closed the event, Elon looked out at the sea of faces, each carrying their own stories, challenges, and hopes, and felt a deep gratitude. The journey had been long and winding, marked by trials and triumphs, yet it was far from over. The question that had once demanded answers had become a guiding light, illuminating a path toward purpose, connection, and the enduring power of opening up. With a steady heart and a clear vision, Elon Musk embraced the future, ready to face whatever came next with courage, compassion, and an unshakable belief in the human potential to rise above adversity. As dawn broke over the horizon, Elon stood on the balcony of his home, the soft morning light casting a gentle glow across the city skyline. The world was waking up, brimming with possibilities, and so was he. The journey he had undertaken, from the restless ambitions of youth to the deep self-awareness of maturity, had culminated in a profound sense of peace and purpose. In the quiet moments before the day's demands, Elon reflected on the question that had shaped his life: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? This question, once a source of fear and regret, had evolved into a catalyst for transformation. It forced him to confront not only his biggest regrets but also the ways in which love, connection, and vulnerability could heal and empower. Over the years, Elon had learned that success was not measured merely by rockets launched, cars sold, or fortunes amassed, but by the authenticity with which one faced life's challenges and the compassion one extended to others. The realization had reshaped his relationships, with family, friends, colleagues, and even himself. His bond with Claire, forged through honesty and mutual respect, was a testament to the power of shared vulnerability. Together, they navigated the complexities of life with grace, choosing presence over perfection. His children, each forging their own paths, reminded him of the importance of nurturing individuality and unconditional support. Professionally, Elon's vision had broadened. Tesla and SpaceX were no longer just companies but platforms for social impact and global progress. Initiatives in sustainable energy, disaster relief, and inclusive technology embodied a mission that transcended profit, aiming to uplift humanity and protect the planet. Elon understood that innovation without empathy was hollow. True progress required a balance of ambition and humility. The public narrative around Elon had also shifted. Where once his persona was framed by controversy and relentless drive, now the story included resilience, reflection, and growth. His memoir and public engagements opened doors to dialogue about failure, mental health, and the importance of connection, subjects often hidden beneath the surface of success. This openness fostered a community of empathy and inspiration. Yet, Elon knew that the journey of self-discovery was ongoing. There would always be challenges, moments of doubt, and unexpected turns. But the lessons he had learned, the courage to open up, the strength in vulnerability, and the enduring power of love, would guide him through whatever lay ahead. As he prepared to step into this new chapter, Elon felt a quiet confidence. The world was complex and uncertain, but so was the human spirit resilient and hopeful. He thought back to the question that had sparked it all and smiled. Life is full of surprises, but love will always lead the way. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? With that, Elon turned from the balcony and embraced the day, not as a man defined by regrets, but as one transformed by the courage to face them and the grace to move forward. The story ends here, but the journey continues, for Elon and for all of us inspired to open up, connect, and grow. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?